So what's up people, and welcome to another Alita Battle Angel video, kind of. Yeah, today's video is a little bit off the standard path that I go for Alita Battle Angel videos. I'm not talking about the plots or future speculations or comparisons with the comic or the novel or any of that stuff. Instead, I wanted to discuss something that I have been thinking about, but I really never made a video with regards to, is the continuous debate that's going on with regards to the topic of gender diversity, proper gender representation, and the criticisms that have been focused towards this movie, as well as towards things like anime in general, and towards, of all things, James Cameron. And the reason I started thinking about this more is due to some of the videos that I've been watching by a couple of YouTubers on GenX Strikes Back and StarofElyon. And these YouTubers, I tend to watch a lot of their videos. I follow their videos quite a bit. And GenX Strikes Back, as you know, makes a lot of Alita Battle Angel videos, just like StarofElyon. And he has made one of my favorite Battle Angel videos in the past called There's Life. I think it was called something like There's Life After Star Wars, focusing on Alita Battle Angel. I found that video to be extremely touching because of the fact that I myself also grew up with the original Star Wars trilogy. And just like him, well, in my case, I decided not to even watch The Last Jedi due to some of the things that I've heard of that come out in the movie, which I have some issue with regards to what I feel about the Star Wars story. I'm not going to go into it here because that goes into way too much detail. If you want to hear about it, then I could make another video on it. But yeah, he made a really nice video on that, and I'll leave a link to that video. But he also recently made a video with regards to the recent Terminator trailer. And so did StarofElyon. And to be honest, I didn't even know there was a Terminator trailer until these two YouTubers made these videos and I watched them. And so thank you very much to GenX Strikes Back, and thank you very much to StarofElyon. It's always good to get information from you guys. And so I was watching this, and what was interesting was, this was talking about a lot of the gender representation, mostly about female characters, and, was focusing on the new character being a little bit more masculine in appearance. And, of course, the return of Sarah Connor, which I guess James Cameron has mentioned as being something like a tough, badass grandma sort of character. And that was somewhat, I guess, suggested to be in reply to a lot of the criticism that he has been receiving with regards to his past movies, and especially Alita Battle Angel, having a skewed view of gender representation or gender diversity. That Alita, considering she is a cyborg and considering that she is a special operations operative, has this feminine looking, I guess, cyborg body. And so that has been criticized by a lot of people as James Cameron having a skewed view of gender diversity. And I thought that was quite interesting. I mean, I'm not going to go too much into the detail with regards to a lot of that debate because there has been a lot of videos that have already been made by people who are much better at describing this, such as GenX Strikes Back and StarofElyon, as well as Stock Ito and Yellow Flash. And there's a lot of people who have created some videos with regards to that. So I'm not going to go into that particular aspect. What I found that was very curious about this entire thing is the whole understanding of what gender diversity may mean. I mean, the criticism came from the appearance that Alita, considering she was a tough character and considering she was a cybernetic character, had a feminine appearance. Of course, this was in comparison to a lot of other characters that were brought up, such as Captain Marvel or I guess the She-Ra character, which I have never seen, so I don't really know about, which has a lot less feminine features to them. And so the argument was that these characters represented a lot greater gender diversity than something like Alita, and so that gave a criticism to both the Alita Battle Angel movie as well as James Cameron's representation of female characters. On top of that, the argument seemed to be that these new representation characters such as She-Ra or Captain Marvel was a new frontier that was brought in through the representation of a less feminine and possibly what you might say a more masculine sort of female character. And this, of course, showed how there was greater gender diversity in these particular films. Now, I'm not, again, going to go into whether they really are more masculine looking or not. And I'm not going to go into whether, Alita's feminine looks is more appropriate to, I don't know, some of these other characters or vice versa. What I wanted to talk about was, again, the statement with regards to the representation of gender diversity by 3 focus points which these people criticized. First one is, of course, the movie Alita Battle Angel because of Alita's feminine looks. So I'm going to go explore it a little bit more broadly in terms of the Battle Angel Alita comic verse. The second is, of course, animes in general being a poor representation of a diverse gender. And of course, the third is James Cameron's supposedly skewed representation of female characters. And I found that to be very curious because of the things that I've seen in the past. And I want to go into that, each one separately. And so when one discusses this recent frontier breakthrough of, masculine type of female characters, I find that to be very interesting because of the fact that that's not particularly true. There has been representation of masculine type of female characters in the past. And the interesting thing that I find about this is one of my favorite examples of a movie with a masculine female character is from James Cameron himself. The movie I'm talking about is Aliens, my favorite of the Alien franchise. And although a lot of people focus in on the Ellen Ripley character, which I did like a lot, the character that really struck out, although she was a masculine kind of representation of a female character, was that of Private Vasquez. And to be honest, I really liked this character a lot. She was really badass. And what I liked about her is she did have a no-nonsense, take no crap from any guy or girl sort of attitude, but it was extremely well represented to the role that she was playing. I mean, Ellen Ripley basically went to that planet with the colonial marines that were specifically tasked to take out alien hordes. So you could imagine that this battalion has been through a tremendous amount of very dangerous firefights. And so if Private Vasquez is in there, then you could expect that she has a no-nonsense attitude. And what was interesting about her persona is, although she played a tough masculine persona, it wasn't that she was trying to portray herself as I'm tougher than anybody else here. She played it tough because her role required that. You see, in the battalion, of course, there's various roles that each person plays. There was a medic, there's a communication officer, there's the dropship pilot, Vasquez's role was being the tank, right? She was the tank that basically blew away the aliens when things got tough. And so she had to have that attitude. And as tough as she was, she always respected the people that was around her, whether it was her comrades that were male or female in gender. And the only time that she really got angry at somebody and basically distrusted someone, and if that person was male, was not because of their gender, but because this person was an armchair commander. Basically a person who had no experience in battle, but used their rank to take over command of the battalion. And you could imagine that she had complete disdain over this person because she knew that when an inexperienced person took over command, basically there was a high potential for the entire battalion to get wiped out. She hated those types of people, and she looked at this person with complete disrespect. But the thing I loved about it is that since her commanding officer, Corporal Hicks, demanded that everybody follow this person's orders, like a good soldier, she did that regardless of whether she liked it or not. And that's what I really liked about that role. Not that she was masculine, but it fit the role so well. And what was interesting is when things started getting really crazy in the movie, and even members of her own battalion started to unwind, she kept her cool. And she had probably one of the most memorable scenes in the movie when her and that stupid commanding officer were at a point where they couldn't escape or fight back. The commanding officer brought out a grenade. She said her final words, which was, "I still think you suck," to that commanding officer. And then they sacrificed themselves to save the rest of the battalion. Yeah. Lieutenant Vasquez was a female character, and Lieutenant Vasquez was a kick-ass, badass character that was created by James Cameron, who was supposed to have the skewed version of a gender diversity because he never has created this masculine sort of female character, to which a lot of people take credit by these new characters which don't hold a candle to Private Vasquez. And what I think is interesting about gender diversity is diversity isn't meaning, take a female character and make them masculine. Diversity means a whole series of different types of characters, whether it's a feminine character or a masculine character. And what's interesting about James Cameron is he has shown gender diversity by bringing out a whole variety of female characters, whether that's Private Vasquez from Aliens, tough as nails but slightly more feminine Trudy Cashon, played by Michelle Rodriguez in Avatar, or Alita, who's a tough as nails spec ops soldier, but at the same time a heartbroken teenager, to somebody like Ellen Ripley, who's a lot more calculating, a scientist who can wield a gun. Or Dr. Lindsay Brickman in The Abyss, who plays a much more kind of scientist, to something very soft such as Rose in the Titanic. So this whole different type of representation of the female character is what I would consider gender diversity, not narrowly focusing on just one specific representation of the female character. And what's interesting is, of course, as much as James Cameron wants to do this for gender diversity, he's actually doing it because he is a storyteller, a really good one too. And so he doesn't do it for the sake of making a statement. He does it for the sake of creating a good story. Each one of these characters was created as they were because that is the role that was best portrayed for that particular story. And that's how it should be. You shouldn't be creating these roles just to make a statement on some political or cultural point that actually sacrifices the entire story itself, but should be diverse enough and creative enough that you can make these roles very representative of the characters that come out in these stories. And because James Cameron is such a good storyteller in portraying romantic stories like the Titanic to very tough as nails stories like the Terminator, that he can come up with all these different sorts of characters to portray their roles properly. And for me, that's what I think is the whole point of gender diversity. And of course, outside of James Cameron's films, of course there are a lot of other films that show, masculine type of female characters. Another good example is the character Nikita in the film, the movie, not the TV series, La Femme Nikita. Nikita plays this counterculture, rebellious sort of teenager who gets inducted into the spy world, and she becomes an assassin, but she retains that kind of really tough as nails and masculine persona because she doesn't trust anybody. So many people have betrayed her that she doesn't trust anybody. What was so interesting about that movie is the person who did finally change her was not the spy organization, but a very peaceful gentleman who showed that he was willing to trust her no matter how much of a dark background she had. And it was the first time anybody did trust her for herself, and that was the opportunity that she got to be able to change her characteristic. So once again, a diverse gender portrayal that's made to fit the role that the character is supposed to portray. And of course, masculine doesn't always have to mean appearance, it could also mean persona. And for that, one of the best examples is Xena, the warrior princess. And I don't think anybody will argue that she was a really badass character. And if you remember, in that series, she did have a slightly romantic relationship with her partner, Gabrielle. So what I can't figure out is why some of these new portrayals of these characters that are coming out are supposed to be some frontier, groundbreaking portrayals. And also, why is someone like James Cameron, who has previously successfully shown masculine female characters, to be criticized for, of all things, gender diversity? Of course, equally curious is the criticism that is given to things like manga and anime, in that they don't represent gender diversity of the female character well enough. There are not enough masculine representations of females. And I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Anime has shown masculine female characters way, way earlier than a lot of these other representations. And so yeah, you could even go all the way back to the 1950s and you could find representations of masculine female characters. One of the earliest is one called Ribon no Kishi, which in English I think was called Princess Knight. And as the title represents, it's a character who is a princess but is also sometimes a knight. It is a character who was born with both a female and a male soul. And by choice, this character can turn into a male character or a female character. And that was the interesting thing with regards to this story. So of course, during the female character's side, she falls in love with this other prince. And while she is a male character, she has all these princesses running after her. And so that created this very curious story, which happened way back in the 1950s. That's how progressive anime has been. And if you want to take another example, one of the most successful animes back in the 1970s in Japan was one called Versailles no Bara, or The Rose of Versailles, which was a story about the French Revolution, or something slightly before the French Revolution. And the main character who came out in that, one Oscar Francois de Georges, was a female character who was raised to be a male representation. You see, the father of the Oscar was a great general of the French army, and he always wanted to pass that to one of his sons. Unfortunately, he always kept on getting daughters. And finally, he got so fed up that he decided to raise his youngest daughter as a son. And so the story is about this girl who is portraying a boy who is named Oscar, right? A great general of the French army during the time of Marie Antoinette. And what's interesting is because he is raised in this situation, he or she, I don't know which way you want to call it, this character also has a romantic relationship, a little bit of a romantic relationship with Marie Antoinette herself, as well as a very strong romantic relationship with his/her childhood friend named Andre. And it is a relatively tragic story in that, of course, Andre and Oscar go into battle, the final battle, and they both die in each other's arms in that final battle. Yeah, so this is again in the 1970s with a gender representation of a masculine version of a female character. So once again, I don't understand why anime is considered non-progressive by limiting the character's representation. Yeah, I could go on and on. I mean, there's that comedy series called Ranma 1/2, which was written by the same author who did Inuyasha. And it's all about this kung fu martial artist and his master. And they practice their kung fu accidentally in this cursed area that has all these cursed ponds, which each one of these ponds contains a soul of a deceased person who drowned in that pond. And while they're fighting, Ranma accidentally falls into a pond that has a soul of a young girl. And for whatever reason, the master falls into a pond that has the soul of a dead panda. And so ever since that point, every time water gets poured on them, they change to that other character. So Ranma keeps on changing from a guy to a girl. And for whatever reason, that master keeps on changing from this kung fu expert to this big fat panda. Yeah. Back in the 70s, there was already a kung fu panda. And what's interesting, of course, with this is a comedy. So you find that, the rivals who want to beat the crap out of Ranma at school spend the rest of the time running after the female version of Ranma, thinking that that's Ranma's sister, and tries to go out with her, tries to hit on her. And then later on, when he turns back into a male, then they try to beat him up again. Yeah, it's a weird story. But hey, welcome to the world of anime. Nothing is ever, constrained in this world. And once again, why is there this unusual criticism with regards to the limit in the representation of both male characters who may turn feminine, like in Ranma, or female characters who can be masculine, like Oscar Francois de Georges? And so this brings us to Battle Angel Alita. Gammu. Yeah, gender representation, gender diversity. I find it absolutely hilarious that people are criticizing this franchise as a poor representation of gender diversity. I would think that anybody who's read the Battle Angel Alita series, the Last Order series and the Mars Chronicles series will find that highly amusing because not only is this comic series or this story franchise diverse in gender, it's diverse in the representation of humanity in general. You see cyborgs, you see aliens, you see humans, you see weird mixtures of every possible combination of humanity, and people are questioning gender diversity? Come on! And what's interesting is, of course, if you've read Last Order, there are two very popular characters that come out in this story that give you an interesting representation of gender diversity. One of them is a tough-as-nails soldier who's female in character but is somewhat masculine in persona, named Zazie. And the other is, I think, the only representation I have ever seen of a transgendered cyborg. I don't think I've ever seen a transgendered cyborg except in the Battle Angel Alita comic verse, which of course I'm talking about Zex, right? Zex started out as a female. She went rogue and killed a whole bunch of other people, and then changed her gender to male. Whatever changing gender means for a total replacement cyborg, I'm not really sure, but she changed her gender to a male. And then he went out to kill a bunch of more people, and then went after Alita to try to kill Alita. Of course, later on, he sides with Alita and becomes one of the most popular characters in the entire Battle Angel Alita franchise. People love Zex. And in a similar manner, a lot of people like Zazie. I really like Zazie. Zazie is a tough-as-nails character. And although she doesn't have the hand-to-hand combat skills like Alita, my God, she works with guns and ordnance as well. It is just a pleasure watching her fight with her armaments. And so, yeah, I really like the Zazie character the same way I like the Vasquez character in Aliens. And so, finally, and bottom line, this isn't about whether masculine females should be more represented than feminine females or vice versa. I just find this all curious with regards to what people are considering gender diversity. Why is it that when you focus narrowly on a different version of gender, that's supposed to be diverse when it's just as narrow as another version, right? And why are people criticizing things that have shown a tremendous amount of gender diversity, such as James Cameron's films or anime in general, or the Battle Angel Alita franchise, when these are really good representations of gender diversity? And in the case of Battle Angel Alita, I would say it goes even further and shows humanity in the diverse ways you can represent it. Anyway, that's about it for this video. Sorry for the strange topic to which this video was. And thank you very much for watching. And I'll go back to making my standard Alita Battle Angel Alita Gunmu videos in the future. I hope you join us at that time. And until then, happy comic reading, happy anime watching, happy movie watching, and as always, JAYA nice day, everyone.